Hey guys, this is Jody Roundhouse with the Roundhouse Report. It's Mother's Day, May 12th, 2019. Breaking news about Iran. This is the Roundhouse Report. Please subscribe. Right now, there's some stuff going on the world stage. Breaking news. I'm going to have to date this because everything could happen very quickly. A war could erupt over, very, very fast. Again, today's May 12th, 2019. Breaking news, the United States is suddenly out of nowhere sending a massive amount of military assets to the Persian Gulf region. Specifically, they've announced to counter Iran. It's really quite funny because for years and years and years, I've watched, as I've read through source material, I've seen picture after picture of these leaders of Iran, smiling and grinning whenever we would talk about imposing sanctions on them or doing this or doing that. And I'm not talking about the population. I'm talking about the theocracy that is the Iranian dictatorship, who hate America. They have a Death to America Day. And they just kept grinning. Oh, we're going to find a way, during the nuclear negotiate for the nuclear pact and everything that Trump withdrew from. Okay, so ever since we withdrew from that nuclear pact, okay, we have been systematically reimposing the sanctions that were already in place, except we're doing it in a unilateral way. Before, the European Union / the Europeans, the Russians, the Chinese, the United States were on board in a multilateral way. Now, we've backed out. Ever since we backed out about a year ago or so, the Iranians have been trying to cobble together a way to save the Iranian deal, the nuclear deal, because we pulled out, but the Europeans didn't, the Chinese didn't, and the Russians didn't. But we did, the United States. So we gave an ultimatum. We said, we shut down their economy and their banking system. I think in one day, a couple months ago, a round of sanctions hit, and the Iranian currency dropped 50% in one day. That's why you're seeing a lot of civil unrest in Iran against the regime. The regime is scared right now. And they have every right to be scared because for the past year or whatever, they've been trying to fix the situation. They've been trying to salvage the nuclear deal for the sake of their economy. They haven't been able to do it because under U.S. sanctions, any business that does, or any company, any corporation that does business with Iran can't do a business with America. Period. You can't use the U.S. dollar. That's the cornerstone of the global economy. The U.S. dollar, the epicenter of the global economy, is in New York City. We're saying to these companies and these corporations, American obviously, but European, Russian, and China, we're saying to these corporations and these policies that they have toward Iran, trying to salvage some, this deal. For the past year, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. At the same time, the United States under Trump, working in tandem with Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states that are afraid of Iran, we've kind of formed like a NATO, for a Middle Eastern NATO there with the Gulf states, Iran, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan. We have Israel, a little pit bull there. But I'm getting off point. The civil unrest in Iran, they tried to fix the broken nuclear deal that we pulled out of. And all these companies globally are faced with a choice, given renewed and additional unilateral sanctions that the United States has imposed over the period of the past year and a half under the Trump administration. We have said, hey, business that makes computer screens, if you do business with Iran or with any of these Iranian subsidiary front companies, you won't be allowed to use the United States dollar, and you won't be allowed access to the United States financial system. AKA, you're not going to make any money. So over the past year, all these companies have been these companies that showed support when the deal was intact, they started to invest in Iran. Yeah, they started to invest in Iran. Over the past year, they've slowly been peeling back because now they know, like, okay, Trump's serious. He's so serious that this is the breaking news. We just now dispatched a massive amount of military assets into the region. According to CENTCOM, which is based at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, they're in charge of the Middle East. U.S. CENTCOM, these assets are being surge deployed. That's one thing the United States has been working on under our new national security posture, is the ability to quickly surge forces from the United States or from anywhere in the world to another part of the world with no notice and be as quick as possible. So that's what surge deployment is. The United States has lacked in that because for the past 20 or 30 years, we haven't had to deal with any great power near competitors like Russia and China, near competitors. We haven't had to deal with that. Now we do. So under Mattis, who unfortunately has resigned as Secretary of Defense, we put into place a series of things that would make us less predictable. AKA, we're doing these types of things. We're surging military assets forward out of nowhere. Whereas before we would have it like, on a very timely monthly calendar, we're going to do this there, we're going to send this fleet here on this date, we're going to send this fleet here, because we're pretty open, generally speaking, when it comes to our military assets and how they're being deployed. If you watch C-SPAN, which they are, the Chinese and the Russians. U.S. CENTCOM, the official statement, that these assets are being surge deployed to, quote, clear indications that Iranian proxy forces were making preparations to possibly attack U.S. forces in the region, in the Middle East. So again, from U.S. CENTCOM, quote, these assets are being deployed to, quote, because of, quote, clear indications that Iranian proxy forces were making preparations to possibly attack U.S. forces in the region. These, quote, proxy forces, Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon and in Syria and in Iraq, under the Iranian umbrella of the, quote, Popular Mobilization Units, which is about 150,000 man strong. It's myriad militias, most of which pledge allegiance to Iran, are funded and trained by Iran. And a lot of these guys are the same people who killed and maimed thousands of United States and other coalition soldiers during the occupation of Iraq. Iran did most of the IEDs. Iran supplied, cutting-edge shaped charges that these ragtag insurgents previously did not have access to. Iran backed al-Sadr and his little militia in a standing pitched battle against U.S. forces in 2004. Iran has, and al-Sadr, by the way, is now leading in the Iraqi parliament, and he is in exile in Iran, I believe, hiding because he knows that we want to kill him. This force is being surged forward. I'm going to trip out of this. And what I love, again, that Iran is scared because it thought, the regime thought that it could renegotiate something over the past year. Ever since the United States pulled out of the deal, they were hoping they could renegotiate something with the Europeans, with the Chinese, with the Russians. They couldn't, because all these companies are like, dude, we want to make money, man. We're going to pull out so that we have access to the U.S. financial systems, because we're clamping down on the U.S. On the Iranian Central Bank. We've clamped down on them. If you do business with the Iranian Central Bank, you can't do business with the United States or use the United States financial system. Pretty good incentive to not do business with Iran. Well, they've been frantically trying for a year and it hasn't worked. So these smiling Iranian officials that I talked about earlier, they're not smiling anymore. Now they're scared because they know now that the U.S. financial epicenter will draw everyone to New York City and not to Tehran. Okay? And if you look at Trump's cabinet, National Security Advisor John Bolton hates Iran. Before he was National Security Advisor, he would go on the news and lay out detailed plans for how he would go about attacking Iran if he was in a position of authority to do so. Now he is. He's a National Security Advisor. Every morning at 8 a.m., he gives Trump a 20-minute briefing. Mattis, who has resigned, but I'm sure is still giving consultations to the Pentagon, he hated Iran. Trump's entire cabinet is full of anti-Iranian hawks. Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, America's top diplomat, he hates Iran. Everyone hates Iran in Trump's cabinet. In the United States, we're jockeying for control of the Middle East, along with Sunni and Israeli partners, like Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, Israel and Jordan, to thwart the creation of what I've dubbed the Persian Empire V3. So you have the Persian Empire of old, the ancient Greeks, and then you have the Parthians with the Parthian Empire led by the Persians. They fought with the Romans, and then a bunch of other stuff, the Shah and all that crap, whatever. And version 3 is the Iran that we know now as Iran. They're trying to establish the Shiite Crescent. If you Google that, the Shiite Crescent. They're doing a pretty good job. The United States is trying to thwart this land bridge that would extend from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, to the Mediterranean, with Russian backing. So, out of nowhere, we surge deployed, I believe yesterday, an aircraft carrier strike group. That alone is enough to destroy anything. An aircraft carrier strike group, a bomber task force, additional fighter jets, an amphibious assault ship, which I'm assuming is a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and they can land like 3,000 Marines. They could just land on a beach, and they're backed by Apache gunships. They have air support. They have fire support from the sea. Very, very potent. It's a Marine Expeditionary Unit. It's a very potent way to start a war, is to land troops and establish a beachhead using that. So we're sending an amphibious assault ship, and we're sending new surface-to-air missile batteries. Yeah, they're not smiling anymore, because they recently announced, the Iranian regime recently announced, this is my special herbal tea for my calcium deposits. Calcium deposits! It makes my day. My name is Jody Brownhouse, and I have calcium deposits in my hand and my feet. I won't show you those, though. Anyhow, recently the Iranians, and by recently I mean like the day before yesterday, right? They announced, we're going to start doing nuclear testing again. Because they couldn't salvage the deal. They know that they're going to, oh, by the way, the United States under Trump, us and the Saudis are dumping oil on the market to lower, we've drastically reduced the price of oil per barrel. And that's hurting not only the Iranian economy, what's left of it, but it's also hurting the Russian economy. And again, the Russians back Iran. So it's kind of a double win there. And that's one of the reasons, one of the ways in which we won the Cold War is Reagan and the Saudis did the same exact thing, is they dumped oil on the market. So we're doing that from an economic standpoint. The Iranians are responding by saying, okay, we're going to start doing our nuclear stuff again. We're going to start enriching stuff again. They're in their death throes. They're scared. Prior to now, they were like, we'll be all right. We're going to get stuff lined up with the Europeans, and with the Russians will help us out, and the Chinese will help us out, etc. They're not. At least not overtly. Russia and China will continue to support Iran as part of the strategic alliance system that they have that's anti-American. But the quote West, the Europeans, the European Union, they're not going to do business with Iran. And a lot of companies still within Russia and China aren't going to do business with Iran. So we're sending a massive amount. By the way, we have an energy projected weapon, the first one ever made and deployed in Bahrain, which is a little island, little sliver of a country next to Iran in the Persian Gulf. I think the 6th Fleet is based there, or the 5th Fleet. One of our fleets is already based there. And on one of our ships, we have a laser. And I really need to research this more. Not much has been said about what the laser does, but it has been officially announced about a year or two ago by the U.S. Navy that it is deployed and it is ready to be used at any moment. And now we're sending all this other stuff. We have troops in Iraq. We have 6,500 troops that are in western Iraq, in big bases, assisting the Iraqi government, which has essentially been bought off by Iran. So we're keeping troops there to make sure that they do our bidding, the Iraqi government in Baghdad. They're in the western deserts of Iraq leading into Syria to block the Iranian land bridge, again, the Shiite Crescent. We also have special operations troops inside of Syria at Al-Tanf. It's one of the 5 border crossings leading from Iraq into Syria. We have troops there with the Syrian Democratic Forces. Props to the Kurds. Woo! Alright, so and now we're sending all this crap. If something were to pop off, and Iran knows it, everyone knows it, There's nothing that anyone could do about it. We would devastate Iran. Russia can't step in. They know it. They won't. China most certainly can't step in. They have no power projection. Not militarily. They're not going to step in. The world will sit aside just like they did in 1990/1991. Just like they did in 2001. Just like they did in 2003. They're going to sit aside and they're going to watch as the American empire once again launches a preemptive assault against another nation state for reasons that are legitimate and some not. It's realpolitik. This is the world. We're back to great power, near peer, near peer, great power competition, regional supremacy. We're looking to reestablish regional dominance in the Middle East to counter Russia. Russia's very heavy in Syria right now. They have bombers, they have troops, a lot of troops inside of Syria. And right now we are balling up to Iran. Militarily, we've already done so economically, and they're scared. And that can be seen by them threatening we're going to start doing our nuclear stuff again. And they've been testing ballistic missiles this whole time. They've been doing R&D, research and development, this whole time. But now that they're seeing that they're kind of screwed, that no one's going to help them out like they thought, now they're scared and they're threatening to do these tests. And then the next day, out of nowhere, we send this an aircraft carrier strike group, according to one retired admiral who gave a lecture at the Naval Institute. We have 10 of them that are deployed, an aircraft carrier strike group. It's an aircraft carrier with a bunch of support ships that protect it, guided missile destroyers, supply ships, submarines, etc. Any one of our 10 is stronger than the entire navy of any one country on Earth. So one of our strike groups is more powerful than the navy of England, the navy of France, the navy of Russia, of China, and we have 10 of them. We sent one of them. We sent a bomber task force, heavy bombers. There's a B-52s right there. Fighter jets, an amphibious assault ship. Now that's new. Sending us an amphibious assault ship into the Persian Gulf. I don't think we've ever done that. Not recently. And again, a Marine Expeditionary Unit, if you Google that, you'll see the massive amount of firepower that can bring. And if you combine it with these other assets, my goodness, this right here could win a war. And it's new surface-to-air missile batteries. We got the Middle East on lock. Iran's not going to be able to do anything. So, breaking news. Trump 2020. Yeah. And the Germans are sending stuff too. You know why? Prussian pride. Prussian pride. I'm Prussian. Prussian flag behind me. Prussian. American flag. American. Base DNA origins according to the test. Scandinavia. Nordic skull. Nordic pride. The Nords were the Vikings. Pretty cool. Conquered what became Prussia. Right? Got the whole thing going on. So, anyhow, this is the Roundhouse Report. Please subscribe. Breaking news, the United States balling up to Iran. Ooh. Ooh. And again, happy Mother's Day. It's May 12th, 2019.